Questions 29 through 34. Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class. The professor is talking about cardiac muscle.
Every minute of every day, blood flows through every corner of your body. The flow of blood brings oxygen and other nutrients to your tissues. Then it loads up the waste products of your metabolism and carries them away. This system of nutrient exchange is what keeps your organs and tissues alive. It's made possible only because of the steady beating of your heart, the driving force of your circulatory system. How can your heart keep beating and beating, never stopping, and rarely getting out of sync? It's possible because of the specialized type of muscle, cardiac muscle, that makes up the heart tissue, and also because of the action of specialized electrical pathways that run through the heart's walls. Before I go into cardiac muscle, let's back up a bit. You may recall from last time that the action of a muscle is always to contract. Muscles can extend only passively. They extend as they relax between contractions. You'll also recall that the human body has different types of muscles. For example, skeletal muscle controls body movements, and cardiac muscle controls the body's blood flow. Skeletal muscle is found throughout the body, but cardiac muscle is found only in one place, the heart. Skeletal muscles get their name from the fact that their movement is based on the contraction of muscles working against the skeleton. Skeletal muscles are attached to the bones, and they move the bones by contracting. A skeletal muscle consists of a bundle of long fibers running the length of the muscle. The bundles of fibers are arranged in a regular pattern, a repeating pattern of light and dark bands. This band is called striation, and skeletal muscle is also known as striated muscle. When a muscle contracts, the length of each bundle is reduced. A skeletal muscle contracts only when it's stimulated by a motor neuron. Cardiac muscle, on the other hand, contracts rhythmically, all on its own. Cardiac muscle cells can generate impulses on their own, without any input from the nervous system. They can do this because of complex chemical and electrical changes involving sodium, calcium, and potassium, each of which carries an electrical charge. Like skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle is striated. However, the membranes between cardiac muscle cells contain specialized regions that provide direct electrical contact among cells. What this means is, an electrical impulse generated in one part of the heart will spread to all the cardiac muscle cells. Thus, the whole heart will contract. Cardiac muscle cells can generate impulses without any input from the nervous system. In contrast to this, skeletal muscles don't contract unless the nervous system tells them to. A single cardiac muscle cell will beat even when it's isolated from the heart and placed in cell culture in the laboratory. If you removed a little piece of muscle from your heart and put it in a dish, you would see it continue to contract. That's because cardiac muscle cells have something called an action potential. Electrically, they're set up so that sodium and calcium, positive ions, change places with potassium, a negative ion, across the cell membrane. This happens automatically over and over again. When sodium, calcium, and potassium ions move into or out of a cardiac cell, it causes the muscle to contract. What we think of as a heartbeat is really a series of contractions in the cardiac muscle. When the heart's walls contract, they force blood out of the chambers and into the next chamber, or the large blood vessels that lead to the rest of your body. Every day your heart contracts 100,000 times or more, pumping more than 2,000 gallons of blood. But unlike the skeletal muscles in your body, your cardiac muscle can never stop and take a rest. If your heart stops beating, you have very little time, only a matter of minutes, for it to start up again before all your other body systems are permanently damaged or stop functioning altogether.
Number 29. How does the professor develop the topic
called sleep?
むずい。やばいな。結婚式か。
Speaking section directions. The speaking section measures your ability to speak in English about a variety of topics clearly. And 6, your responses will be scored on your ability to speak clearly and coherently, and on your ability to accurately convey information about what you heard. You will hear each conversation and lecture only one time. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help. Describe the qualities of a good teacher and explain why these qualities are effective. Include details and examples to support your explanation. Some people like to cook their own meals at home. Others prefer to eat in a restaurant or a cafeteria. Which do you prefer? Now listen to 2 students as they discuss parking on campus.
So, Julian, are you all ready to start another year?
Almost. I've still got to get a parking pass.
They discuss parking on campus.
So, Julian, are you all ready to start another year?
Almost. I've still got to get a parking permit, but I was a little shocked to see how much they cost this year. Last year, it was only $35 a quarter to park on campus, but now it's $50. That's a big increase. The annual permits went up too.
That's probably because the college built that big new parking lot.
Yeah, and they're making the students pay for it. The faculty and staff can park on campus for free, and they get to park next to the main building in the old lot. But we have to park in the new lot, and we're hit with a big fee increase. It's not fair.
I'm glad I take the bus.
I don't even understand why they had to build that new parking lot. It's bigger than they really need, and it's so far away from everything. It takes a long time to walk from the parking lot to where most of the classrooms are, and they want us to pay more for the privilege.
The man expresses his opinion about parking on campus. Some people like to cook their own meals at home. Now listen to part of a talk in a psychology class.
One of the earliest behaviorists is Ivan Pavlov, an experimental psychologist noted for his studies of the reflex reaction in humans and animals. A reflex is an involuntary action of the body, such as a sneeze, a blink, or a hiccup. Pavlov did a series of experiments using dogs. He found that when a bell is rung each time a dog is fed, the dog starts to associate the sound of the bell with food. Consequently, whenever the bell rings, the dog expects food. The dog salivates and drools, and there's an increase in the flow of his stomach juices. The dog's bodily response to the bell is a conditioned reflex, a behavior that occurs because the dog has been trained by the sound of the bell. Pavlov's experiments with dogs and discovery of the conditioned reflex contributed to the development of behaviorism. The dog's bodily response, its behavior, does not come from something inside the dog. Rather, the behavior is the result of conditioning, the careful control of the dog's environment. Pavlov argued that the dog's behavior, drooling, was strictly a reaction to the environmental stimulus of the bell.
Describe Pavlov's experiments with dogs and explain how these experiments contribute.